So, Dune Part II is coming out. Well, actually, it already came out. I guess I should talk about Dune already. And why it sucks! Okay, I'm just kidding. Only slightly. Hello, everyone. Britton here, also known as Samoki Dude, and today, if you couldn't gather from my little cute intro there, I am covering Dune by Frank Herbert. I don't actually own a copy anymore. I did have a copy, but I wish I were kidding on this. My dog chewed up my copy. She didn't eat it, per se. I'm not going to pull the old my dog ain't my homework thing. But she certainly chewed on it. She went to town on that damn thing. So I don't really like having chewed up books, and I ended up giving it away. So that's the story on that. I don't own Dune anymore, but I did have a copy, and I read that copy. And that is what I'm reviewing today. Admittedly, Dune is a novel that intimidated me in the same way that something like Gravity's Rainbow or Infinite Jest does, though Dune isn't nearly as experimental as those other two books I've just mentioned. I mean, it was also intimidating as a science fiction fan, considering it's described as one of the best of the genre. Dune is certainly Dune has certainly shaped our view of science fiction as we know it today. Alejandro Jodorowsky's infamously aborted attempt to make it into a film has influenced films throughout the decades, the most famous being Star Wars and Alien, which, speaking of which, by the way, check out Jodorowsky's Dune. It is a fantastic documentary starring Jodorowsky, Dan O'Bannon, Moebius, aka one of the greatest comic artists who's ever done it, and plenty of other people who worked on the film. Also, H.R. Geiger is in it. He did you might know him from his designs in the Alien films. Fantastic movie, but I'm getting off topic. It's also really surprising how much Star Wars had cribbed from Dune. I mean, my god, there's the Space Princess, the Spice, the Jedi Mind Trick, the voice, the Evil Emperor, the Sand Planet, and so on. There are some more ardent fans who could make the case that George Lucas plagiarized Dune. I wouldn't go that far, though, because I find that Star Wars is seeking to redefine mythological storytelling, while Dune seeks to deconstruct mythological storytelling. Despite its lofty ambitions, Dune frustrated me when I read it, and I found it fell into the pit trap that many science fiction novels do. While Dune's thematic exploration, scale, and ambition are strong throughout the story, it really suffers from flat characterization and stolid emotionality. Believe it or not, I didn't know that was an actual word until quite recently. The idea of deconstructing the hero's journey and the chosen one tropes are a rather inspired concept, I think. Herbert constructs his critique of the hero's journey in such a thoughtful, subtle way throughout the story. Yet, like many fantasy and science fiction authors of Herbert's ilk, he cannot give it life. His characters have some shade of personality, but I never really got the sense that they were genuine, authentic people. I mean, my god. There were just points I felt that the characters were just not really reacting like I would expect real people would. I think a lot of them are prone to philosophizing, and don't get me wrong, there are people who are prone to philosophizing. But not everyone does it, and also, I just have to drop this because, I can't do a Dune review in good faith without mentioning this, but Baron Harkonnen is easily one of the goofiest villains I have ever seen. This disgusting, fat, ugly, just evil man with an affinity for pederasty. It's just not compelling for me, and I felt that the characters really lacked depth, and there wasn't really a lot of emotion there that I felt when I was reading this book. Now, before I hear the inevitable retort that Herbert's focus wasn't on the characters, it was more focused on the ideas, I would respond that characterization should be at the heart and soul of a story's thematic exploration. If the characters aren't engaging, then the power of the message falls completely flat, at least for me. Herbert's style of writing also proved to be wildly inconsistent. It's kind of like, I used this metaphor before, or simile, it's almost like if a car started, died, and start it again and repeat. It seems like Herbert didn't really know if he wanted to make Dune a philosophical exploration or a pulp adventure. And yes, there are shades of this being a pulp adventure. This was basically Herbert's take on Barsoom and old pulp adventures from the 30s. Basically, this is him taking those concepts from Barsoom, from those other stories, seriously. So before anyone says, it wasn't really a pulp adventure, yes, it is. It definitely is. He definitely goes for a mixture of both because he can't really seem to figure out which tone he wants to go for. Herbert's ponderousness didn't put me off as it might for some other people, yet again, it's because of the lack of life that Herbert gives to his world and to his characters. I can't connect with what's going on. And again, the prose is similarly without feeling and just doesn't quite attain the type of soul-stirring that I think that Herbert was going for. Yet, despite my criticisms, I don't think Dune is a complete dumpster fire. It still has its strong points. As I mentioned before, I think Herbert's setup and payoff of the theme of power inevitably corrupting even the most well-intentioned people, even if the characters' lack of depth dampened it a little, I still thought was really well done. I may be biased on this case because Herbert's skepticism of power is a position that I sympathize with, and I think is a message that is very important for people to hear. Again, but sadly, Dune's thematic depth is weighed down by the flat characters and its tendency to philosophize rather than connect with the audience. Another thing I really liked is you cannot deny Frank Herbert's skill as a world builder. Now, believe it or not, even though I've been harping on about great character and storytelling, I actually am a sucker for good world building. I mean, my God, one of my favorite books that I read a few years ago, Perdido Street Station, probably has some of the strongest world building that I have ever seen in any piece of speculative fiction ever. It is a fantastic novel, but what makes Perdido Street Station different from Dune? Well, Perdido Street Station, I find, has stronger characters, a more developed plot, more developed characters, and also it understands that character is the soul of thematic exploration. If China Mieville had just gone on and philosophized for 500, 600 pages, people would be bored. So, he gave us a great story with interesting characters that, though occasionally rambling story, with great characters, that's what makes Perdido Street Station, and also The Scar, work, and that's what makes Dune not work so well. It's pretty disappointing, at least for my money. I don't hate Dune, I just think it's a relatively mixed experience. Dune is one of those books that has a lot of promise, and it almost delivers on that promise, and on its premise, I mean. Yet it never really takes that extra step into... I can't speak today. It's been a long day. It never takes the extra step in order to be great, like some other science fiction novels would. I probably wouldn't recommend Dune as one of my favorite science fiction novels of all time. That would definitely go up with Bourne, A Scanner Darkly, The Martian Chronicles, which, by the way, if any of y'all are disappointed with Dune and want to see an actually really compelling thematic exploration of going to another planet and basically stripping down its resources, I would recommend The Martian Chronicles from Ray Bradbury. It's a fantastic book, some of the best science fiction ever written. Really is the bee's knees, as people like to say. But it has remained, Dune anyway, has remained in the public consciousness for all these years, so it did something right. And despite its many shortcomings and failures, Dune remains an audacious and daring experiment of the science fiction genre, and I highly doubt we'll see any other book of its ilk again. At least in terms of impact. I mean, there are a couple of books that have cribbed from Dune. Most recently, the Sun Eater series from Christopher Rocchio, which I've still yet to read. So, yeah, that's my review of the book. So I bet you're wondering, Britton, did you see the movie did by Denis Villeneuve? You've praised Denis Villeneuve before, at least if you guys don't know already. I'm a big fan of Denis Villeneuve's movies. Well, I read the book of Dune, and I really wasn't looking forward to this movie because, again, I thought the book was pretty mid. And, well, it's pretty good. It's grown on me over the years. I think it's a technically very well constructed film. The visuals, magnificent. I mean, my God, this might be, at least visually, one of the best science fiction things I have ever seen in my life. Though again, I feel it struggles in the same place where the book struggles. I find that its thematic depth is undercut by the fact that you don't really care about what's going on. Well, except for Duncan, Idaho. The only time I actually felt emotionally engaged in that movie is when Duncan, Idaho decides to sacrifice himself to save Paul and Jessica. Spoilers, by the way, sorry. That was the only time during that movie that I actually felt something. Also, I feel that the villains are done a lot better. Like Stellan Skarsgård as Baron Harkonnen, he actually seems threatening as a villain. Like he's not just this fucking cartoon character who's running around just like, more, you know, none of that. He actually feels like a threat. Like he actually feels like he knows what the hell he's doing. And Dave Bautista's in it for like a couple minutes. He's Dave Bautista. He's actually a pretty good actor. I think he gets underrated. You know, he's really trying. And I mean, aside from his kind of, you know, memey, they take everything we built. You know that scene. Maybe I like this film more than I thought. But anyway, aside from great visuals, and I should also note the phenomenal score from Hans Zimmer. My God, that man rarely misses. I mean, man, what a phenomenal composer. Really captures the feel of Dune. If you ask me myself, I mean, it captured what I was feeling when I read the book anyway. But yes, again, technically really well, but I think the characterization, once again, I feel, as I said before, I felt like the world and the thematic exploration really got in the way of actually giving those things life, which is the characters. So, yeah, Dune. Not really a big fan of this novel, to be honest with you, and I hate to start things out this week with a rather contrarian review, but I should note, if you guys like Dune, that is great. I am glad you guys like Dune. I personally, I don't hate it, but I just thought it was okay. I didn't think it was the best thing ever. Now, I don't want to say it is because it's old and people are nostalgic about it, because in all honesty, I think that's a pretty lazy critique. I'm hoping that my critiques here will at least make it understandable why I felt so mixed about this book. And, yeah. So that's basically all I got for today. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you want to check me out on Twitter, you can find me on Twitter, Some Okie Dude. You can also find me on Goodreads and Letterboxd, where I write reviews that are probably more coherent than the one you just heard right now. And you can also find me on Discord. You can hang out with me. I love hearing from you guys. And also like, comment, subscribe, comment especially. I love hearing from you guys. You know, as my buddy John likes to say, it feels good pressing that like button. So hopefully I haven't ruffled too many feathers with this Dune review. But yeah, Dune. It's a book. Until next time, everyone.